My name is Danielle Carter, and the hardest thing I ever did in my life wasn't burying the two people I loved most. It wasn't standing beside two small caskets and hearing the sound of dirt hitting wood. It wasn't signing papers that made everything painfully real. The hardest thing I ever did was accept that the people who shared my blood had never truly shared my heart. My husband, Michael, used to tell me that grief didn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it came quietly, sometimes it sat beside you at the kitchen table, sometimes it looked exactly like the people you thought would never leave. I didn't understand what he meant until the day I lost him. And I didn't understand my family until the day they proved they never cared. Michael and I had been married for 11 years. He wasn't the kind of man who needed attention. He didn't walk into a room and try to be the loudest person there. He was steady, the kind of person who remembered how you liked your coffee and noticed when you were tired before you admitted it. He was a truck driver. People sometimes look down on that. They heard truck driver and imagined someone who just drove all day. But Michael built his entire life with those hands. Those same hands fixed our old house when we couldn't afford repairs. Those same hands carried our daughter, Emma, when she fell asleep on his shoulder. Emma was 6 years old when everything ended. She had his smile. That was the first thing everyone noticed. Her smile was impossible to ignore. The morning of the accident, I remember waking up and hearing her running down the hallway. "Mommy, Daddy said we're going to make pancakes." I laughed from the bedroom. "Your dad can't make pancakes." A few seconds later, Michael appeared at the door with flour on his shirt. "Excuse me," he said. "I am a professional pancake artist." Emma stood behind him, nodding seriously. "He is." That was my last normal morning. I didn't know it. None of us ever know when a normal moment becomes a memory. By that evening, my world was gone. The call came from the hospital. I remember the voice on the other side. I remember the words. I remember dropping my phone. But I don't remember screaming. People think grief is always loud. Mine wasn't. Mine was silent, like my soul had stepped outside my body and was watching everything happen to someone else. The next few days passed like a dream. The funeral arrangements, the paperwork, the visitors, the flowers, people telling me they were sorry. But there were two people I kept waiting for. My parents, my mother, Linda, my father, Robert, and my older brother, Jason. Family, that word meant something to me. At least I thought it did. I called my mother the night after the accident. She answered after several rings. Danielle. Her voice sounded annoyed, not worried, not scared, annoyed. "Mom." I couldn't finish. My throat closed. She knew. A mother always knows. But she said, "We heard." That was it. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Where are you?" Just, "We heard." I waited. Maybe she was shocked. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Then she said something I still hear in my head. "We already paid for this Hawaii trip, Danielle. Your father and I have been planning it for months." I was confused. "Mom, what?" She sighed. "We can't just cancel everything." I sat there holding the phone. My husband was gone, my daughter was gone, and my mother was talking about a vacation. "Mom," I whispered, "I'm burying my family." She paused. Then she said, "Don't be dramatic." That sentence broke something inside me. Not because it was cruel. Because it showed me she truly didn't understand. They didn't come. My parents and brother went to Hawaii, while I stood beside two graves. The morning of the funeral was cold. The kind of cold that goes through your coat and reaches your bones. I remember holding Emma's favorite stuffed rabbit. I kept thinking she would run up and ask why everyone looked sad. Michael's family stood beside me. His sister Rachel held my hand. She cried harder than anyone. And then I looked toward the parking lot. For a moment, I thought I saw my parents' car. My heart jumped. I thought, they came. I actually smiled. Then the car drove away. It wasn't them. That was when I understood. They weren't coming. I lowered my head and whispered, "Goodbye, Michael." Then, "Goodbye, Emma." I didn't know how I was still standing. 5 days later, my phone rang. I was sitting in the living room. The house felt wrong. Everything was exactly where we left it. Emma's shoes were by the door. Michael's jacket was still hanging on the chair. I hadn't moved anything. I couldn't. The phone rang again. I answered. "Hello." It was Jason, my brother. "Hey, Danielle." His voice was casual, like he was calling to ask about dinner. "Jason." There was a pause. Then, "I need your help." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. "My help?" "Yeah, look, things are complicated." I stared at the wall. "What things?" "My business." Of course, his business. Jason had always been chasing some dream. New ideas, new investments, new excuses. He never finished anything, but my parents always protected him. He was their favorite, the one they believed could do no wrong. "How much?" I asked. There was silence. Then he said, "40,000. I closed my eyes. $40,000, 5 days after burying my husband and daughter. My brother wanted money. "Jason, I know it's a lot." I waited for him to say something else. "Maybe, I'm sorry. Maybe, I should have been there. Maybe, I know you're hurting." Instead he said, "But you have Michael's insurance money now." My fingers tightened around the phone. That was the moment something changed. Not anger, not revenge, something colder. Clarity. "You knew." "Knew what?" "You knew about the insurance." He hesitated. That hesitation answered everything. "My parents told me." I looked around my empty house. The house where my husband built shelves, the kitchen where my daughter danced, the place where my family should have been, and suddenly I saw the truth. They weren't calling because they loved me. They were calling because they thought I was useful. "No," I said. Jason laughed nervously. "Danielle, don't make this emotional." Emotional. That word again, like my pain was an inconvenience. Like my grief was something I needed to control for their comfort. "No," I repeated, "you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Come on, Danielle, we're family." I looked at Michael's picture on the shelf. The last picture we took together. All three of us. Before everything disappeared. Then I said, "No." The line went quiet. "No, no, I'm not giving you money." His voice changed. The kindness disappeared. "Wow," I waited. "After everything we've been through, you're really going to do this?" I almost couldn't believe it. After everything they had been through, I was the one who lost everything. Not them. "Jason, you weren't there." Silence. "You weren't there when I buried my husband." Silence. "You weren't there when I buried your niece." Silence. Then he said, "We were on vacation." I laughed. A broken laugh. "You were on vacation?" "Yes." While I stood alone. "Danielle." "No." My voice surprised me. It was calm, strong. "You don't get to call me family when you only remember I exist when you need something." Then I hung up. For the first time in 5 days, I felt something other than pain. I felt peace, but I didn't know that was only the beginning, because 2 weeks later, my parents came to my door, and they didn't come to apologize. They came with lawyers, and they thought they still had control over my life. They were wrong, because before Michael died, he left me something they never knew about, something that would change everything. When my parents stood at my front door 2 weeks after Michael and Emma's funeral, I already knew they weren't there because they missed me. People who miss you don't wait until they need something. They don't ignore your pain. They don't leave you standing alone at a grave. My mother looked different, not older, just uncomfortable, like she had finally realized she had made a mistake, but only because the consequences were reaching her. My father stood beside her with the same serious expression he always wore when he wanted to appear in control. and behind them was a man in a grey suit holding a briefcase. A lawyer. I didn't open the door all the way. Why are you here? My mother looked offended. Danielle, is that how you speak to your parents? I stared at her. A month ago, those words would have hurt me. Now they sounded empty. My husband and daughter died, I said quietly. You didn't come. Her face changed, just slightly, but enough. We already talked about this. No, we didn't. She talked. I listened. That was always how it worked. I came here because you're making things difficult, my father said. I looked at him. Difficult. He stepped forward. Your brother is struggling. Of course. Jason. It always came back to Jason. I told him no. My mother sighed. You're angry. I'm grieving. There's a difference. I almost smiled. My own mother was explaining my grief to me. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, perhaps we should discuss the matter inside. I looked at him. No. My mother's eyes widened. Danielle, no. I repeated it. I had spent my entire life being afraid of disappointing them. Afraid of being the difficult daughter. The emotional daughter. The daughter who needed too much. But standing there, after losing the people who actually loved me, I realized something. I had already survived the worst day of my life. What exactly was I afraid of now? The lawyer opened his briefcase. Your husband's company has financial obligations. I interrupted him. Michael's company, yes. I felt my heart tighten. Michael spent 15 years building that company. Not a huge corporation, not some empire, just a small transportation business he started with one old truck and a dream. He worked nights, weekends, holidays. He built it so Emma and I would always have security. What about it? The lawyer looked at my parents, then back at me. There are concerns regarding ownership. My father finally spoke. Michael wasn't prepared for something like this. I felt anger rise, not loud anger, a quiet one, a powerful one. You mean he wasn't prepared to die? Nobody answered, because there was nothing to say. Then I noticed something, a small folder in the lawyer's hand. My name was written on it. Danielle Carter. What is that? The lawyer hesitated, then handed it to me. This is a copy of a document your husband signed 6 months ago. My hand started shaking. I opened it. The first page, then the second, then I stopped, because I saw Michael's signature. The same signature he used when he signed birthday cards, when he signed Emma's school papers, when he signed our first house. Documents, but this wasn't a birthday card. It was a legal agreement. My father looked nervous. Your husband was planning changes. I kept reading. Michael had created a trust, not only for me, but for Emma, and if something happened to both of them, the company ownership would transfer completely to me, not my parents, not Jason, me, the person who was there, the person who helped him build it. The lawyer continued. Michael also added a personal letter. I looked up. A letter. He nodded. I opened the envelope, and there it was, Michael's handwriting. My breath stopped. Danielle, if you're reading this, I'm probably not beside you, and I wish more than anything that I was. I had to stop. My vision blurred. My father shifted uncomfortably, but I kept reading. I know you'll try to be strong for everyone else. You always do that. A tear fell onto the page. But remember this, you don't owe anyone access to your life just because they share your last name. I closed my eyes, because Michael knew. He knew. I built this company for you and Emma. If anything happens, protect it. Protect yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing peace. I looked at my parents, and for the first time, I didn't see my mother and father. I saw strangers. The lawyer looked at me. Your husband was very clear. My mother stepped forward. Danielle, this doesn't mean anything. I folded the letter carefully. It means everything. She shook her head. You're letting grief change you. No. I looked at her. Grief showed me who you really are. That hurt her. I could see it. But it was too late. My father lowered his voice. "We are still your parents." I nodded slowly. "Yes." A long silence. "But you stopped acting like my family." Nobody spoke. They left. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The months after that were not easy. People think revenge is one dramatic moment. A speech, a public humiliation, a perfect ending. But real life isn't like that. My revenge wasn't destroying them. It was rebuilding myself. I took over Michael's company. Everyone told me I couldn't do it. A grieving widow, a woman who had never run a transportation company. But they didn't know me. They didn't know the nights I spent helping Michael with paperwork. They didn't know I understood every customer, every route, every employee. They saw someone broken. I saw someone still standing. A year later, the company doubled, then tripled. I hired people who needed second chances. I helped families. I did the things Michael always wanted to do. 1 year after the funeral, I held a small anniversary gathering. Not for my parents, not for my brother, for Michael and Emma, the people who truly mattered. Rachel came, Michael's old friends came, the employees came, and someone unexpected arrived. My mother. She stood near the entrance. Older, quieter. For a moment, I saw the woman who raised me. The woman who used to brush my hair when I was little. The woman who held me when I was sick. Then I remembered the funeral. The empty seat, the phone call, the $40,000. She walked toward me. "Danielle." I waited. I was wrong. Those words were so simple. But they took her a year to say. "I thought you would always forgive me." I looked at her. "I did forgive you." Her eyes filled. "But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were." She nodded. "I know." That was the first honest thing she had said. My father never apologized. Jason eventually closed his business. The money he wanted from me never came. And strangely, I didn't feel happy about it. Because I realized something. The best revenge wasn't watching them fall. It was proving they were wrong about me. They thought losing Michael and Emma would destroy me. They thought I would become weak. Instead, I became the person Michael always believed I could be. Strong, kind, unbreakable. Years later, people still ask me how I survived, how I walked away from my own family. My answer is simple. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked away from people who forgot what family meant. Because family isn't the people who share your blood. Family is the people who show up when your world is falling apart. And on the day I buried my husband and daughter, I learned exactly who mine was.